Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're back. Here's another pre-show for you guys.
Yes, indeed. Such a pre-show. Such a pre-show as you haven't seen since, oh, well, forget it. Now, oh gosh, look. Even though they're terribly expensive, a few of our patrons have shown up in costume. It's not Halloween yet. We're getting there. It is the October country, as Ray Bradbury put it. And we are definitely there. We are in the October country. You're in the 90s or something out there in LA, aren't you?
Yeah.
Not here. It's October country here. And I don't know, I love the October country. I really do. And you know why?
Why?
Because it's real.
As opposed to
Right.
the other seasons?
Well, winter is pretty real too, but spring is covered with false hope.
I sense T.S. Eliot influence.
T.S. Eliot? Well, oh, Robert Frost. But I am in a very New England mood, very autumnal. That's true.
Okay. All right, Charles. Very good. Um,
It's too hot for you to be feeling autumnal, isn't it?
California is just sort of a universal goodness of seasons. You know?
Oh, in the immortal words of my late mother, oh, is that what they're calling it now? We had other words for it in my day. Endless summer. That's fine. I mean, so the Beach Boys are still playing at, age 190 or whatever old they are. That's great. What?
Fixed your
Oh,
camera.
my camera. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see how dictatorial it is? How do you like that? Any of you are palmists out there?
Whoa, watch yourself. No, we don't want none of that stuff here. Control yourself.
Oh, we're getting very excited.
Yeah. Whoa.
Sad thing is, I'll have people writing in about it. Well, look, it's getting closer and closer to Halloween.
Yeah, that's true. I gotta get the pumpkin soon. Gonna carve a jack-o'-lantern.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what else you got to get?
Candy corn.
Yes. And all sorts of other candies. Maybe those little cream pumpkin thingies.
I don't know if I've had the cream pumpkin thingies before.
Well, they look like little pumpkins, but they're all right. Have you had your pumpkin latte at Starbucks yet?
I have amped up my pumpkin flavored things because I've done the pumpkin latte several times over. It's delicious, but even more so, Trader Joe's has gone nuts on the pumpkin spice flavorings. They've had a what is it, pumpkin spice bagel, I think it was,
Oof.
um,
Hmm.
that my wife packed for my lunch, and I just heated it up, and it was just so incredibly delicious. It was incredible. Then pumpkin spiced bread, just normal slices of bread. It's gonna be perfect for turn into French toast. Oh,
Huh.
I just can't get enough of it. It just is. This bread product has been so good. You don't need butter on or anything. It's just been so tasty.
Well, since you're in that kind of a mood, are you a beer drinker?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got really good. I remember like 5 years ago or so. I had a pumpkin ale
That's what I
from
was going to
Trader
ask
from
about. Was
Trader
pumpkin ale?
Joe's. Yeah, it was actually. There's a lot of really bad pumpkin ales that I've tried, and the only good one was actually Trader Joe's.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me about that. Actually, that was kind of like a lost memory that you just brought from the dead.
Yeah, I'm glad to do so. One thing I've noticed about this time of year, as you know, I'm an insufferable poster upon Facebook and Twitter. But I noticed that one thing that seems to get people very jolly, and I mean this quite seriously, is posting about autumn and winter and the grand wondrous nostalgic feelings of this time of year. And it's I think we all want a bit of time off from the insanity, and this is a good way to do it. The I mean, there's what I'm using is very particular to me, of course, but it's applicable to everyone in their own senses. When I say that there's a part of me for whom it's always Halloween in Westchester County in 1964. Well, we all have our perfect holiday memories, I think. Thanksgiving 1985 for someone or other, Christmas of 2002 for someone else.
Yeah, Christmas in '97, I would say. Yeah, for me. Yep.
For me, I would say I would say I had maybe three of them. My three favorite Christmases as a child were 63, 67, and 69. Those three
Yeah.
were particularly good.
Yeah, the I realized something about kind of my age group, my specific age group, is that we're kind of the last of a kind, really, because we have this sort of compartmentalization where our youth in the '90s is pretty much before the internet, you know,
Yeah,
and so it's this very special sort of nostalgia where your childhood was a very different way from perhaps your teenage and college years and etc. um 90s was a very feel good time. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I mean, I remember not because of President Clinton and things like that. I wasn't very happy about it, but I remember telling people, much to their annoyance, that we would one day look back to these days nostalgically. So, well, you can't possibly mean that. During the height of the Monica Lewinsky scandals and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I said, don't ask me how or why, but it'll get worse in ways we cannot begin to fathom. But having said all that, it's also better in ways that we have yet to fathom. Certainly, if the internet has brought us a lot of evils, it's also brought us a lot of good. Nothing is one sided. So, you know, what was it Criswell said? Uh, Honor the past, enjoy the present, laugh at the future.
Hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah. This reminds me of one of my favorite discussions we had. I don't know what we were talking about. It was one of our crazy tangents, but the concept of being nostalgic over just being able to walk out your door without having to be a crack shot.
Yeah. Yeah, the good old days. Back when you didn't have to be able to be a top sniper just to leave your home. Yeah, those were fun. I remember them. Nowadays, if you don't lay down a field of fire immediately you come out, you're toast. Yeah, it's all true, ladies and gentlemen. Ah, God. Well, listen, we could wool gather all day. What do we got in the question realm?
All right, we've got 4 from Youssef.
Okay, Yusef, you get 4 questions, so presumably 4 answers are brewing somewhere. We'll see.
All right, his first one. He says, "Are you familiar with the Greek concept of a daemon, the personification of an abstract concept? Is this where Christianity gets the word demon from?"
Well, Daemon has several meanings in Greek, one of them being a tutelary spirit, which is what Socrates uses it as. Uh, oddly enough, Daemon was sometimes used in the Middle Ages to differentiate a spirit from a demon, although obviously the two words are connected. So, but no, to say that we got it from it would not be correct. You might say they're cognate.
I saw recently that the book of Genesis first words translate to, quote, in a beginning, and that, quote, in the beginning is a translation. Have you ever come across this?
No, but of course, everything you read in the Bible is a translation, unless you're fluent in Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic and Latin. Some claim, I don't know if it's true, but some claim that the Gospel of Mark might originally have been written in Latin and then later translated into Greek. I don't know if that's true, but anyhow, at the very least, if you're not fluent in Hebrew, Greek, maybe Aramaic, then you're not you're only reading a translation. But I've never heard anything about the beginning versus a beginning.
Okay. Have you heard of the theory that God had a wife called Asherah?
No.
Have you heard of the Melungeon people? Is there any validity in their connection to Abraham Lincoln?
Well, I don't know about that. Oh, that he was one. Well, I don't know about their connection to Lincoln, but I know who the Melungeons are. They are in western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, and the Appalachians. They are one of a group of peoples, plural, that you will find really from New England all the way into Louisiana, throughout the South and parts of the Midwest. Um, there are peoples that the anthropologists used to call triracial isolates, which means different similar groups in remotish parts of the country, New York down through Pennsylvania and through the South, into Ohio, um, of mixed black, white, and Indian descent in differing proportions according to their particular history. Uh, some of them are more Indian, some are more black, some are more white, and their relationship with their local neighbors, and in the South, how they fared under segregation varies from group to group. Um, the Melungeons are one such group. And there are all sorts of stories about their origins in different places. For instance, the Ramapo Mountain people on the border between New Jersey and New York in the fabulous Ramapo Mountains, not far from the Paramus Mall, actually. And I'm sure many of them have gone there to shop there. But one of their oldish name that is now considered somewhat pejorative were the Jackson Whites. And the way they're supposed to have gotten their name, and again, there are various theories as to how they came about, but supposedly during the British occupation of New York during our first Civil War, a gentleman named Jackson brought over a contingent of white prostitutes to look after the British troops. But some of them died on the way over. So in the West Indies, he recruited some of the black girls and brought them. And these two sets of people were called Jackson's Whites and Jackson's Blacks. Well, when the revolution ended, so the story goes, the black girls had no problem melting into the new order, but the white girls were despised with their infants. And the British would not bring them back to England, supposedly. So they went off into the mountainous area between New York and New Jersey, which was already a refuge for runaway slaves, Hessian deserters, broken Indian groups. And so supposedly that's how they got the name Jackson Whites. Uh, how true that is, I don't know. What's certain is that they still spoke Dutch as late as 1905 in that part of the world, which is kind of interesting. Um, Similarly, down in southern Maryland, you've got a similar people, mixed white, black, and Indian. And for a long time, they were called Wesorts. And supposedly they got their name, they're Catholic. And supposedly they got their name from one of their older female members, Aunt something or other, who would simply refer to them to distinguish them from blacks and whites. She would just say, we sort of people. and that's why supposedly they were called resorts. But you find them here and there, literally from Connecticut down into through New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the Pine Barrens, all through the Appalachians, into South Carolina. Louisiana has them. Alabama and northern Florida had a group of people called Dominicers. There were several explanations for how they got their name. So that's who the Melungeons are. And again, there are all sorts of theories about their origins. All of them very, very interesting. But beyond that, I mean, they've done some DNA tests, and all that tells us is that they're mixed blood. But that's who they are.
Okay. Question from Eric. He says, "Hello, Vincent. I have a question for Charles. Is there a cause for canonization for King Jan Sobieski? From what little I know, he seems like he was a very devout person, and he also seems like the sort of saint whose intercession Europe could really use in these times."
No, you're quite right, but I haven't heard of any. No reason not to start one.
All right, question from Joseph, who says, "Welcome back, fellas. It was great meeting you in New York City, Charles. Thanks again for signing books for me, my nephews, and my brother, who did move to Idaho, if you recall the conversation.
Yeah.
During your talk on Blessed Carl, I learned that Empress Zita lived until 1989. To your knowledge, had she anything to say about the reforms of Vatican II, liturgical and otherwise? Signed, Joseph, Officer Clancy's Neighborhood Watch."
Yes, indeed. I remember you very well, Joseph. Shout out. Not that I know of. I mean, she attended the Novus Ordo till she died. I know her son preferred the traditional mass. But I really couldn't tell you what her opinion was in that area. I just don't know. And I mean, there are people I suppose I could ask, actually, but I don't know.
Okay. Are you going to smoke a pipe? What are you doing?
What?
I thought you're cleaning your pipe.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I was cleaning my pipe.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Another question. Greetings. Could Mr. Coulombe explain the medieval concept of courtly love? If so, I ask that the dutiful Don compel him to do so. I know you have briefly discussed it in a prior episode, but I could not find it. Was courtly love ever actually practiced, or was it just a literary invention? What is the church's attitude towards it? In Dante's Divine Comedy, it is Dante's love for Beatrice that, at least in part, results in his salvation. This seems to be an endorsement of courtly love. Is it morally licit? It seems a noble way to deal with romantic love for an unattainable lady, but obviously it could also degenerate into adultery. Would it be possible and or permissible to practice courtly love today? If so, how would one do so? Any thoughts from both of you would be appreciated. Well, first off, what is courtly love exactly?
Amour courtois. Courtly love was the devotion of the knight to a lady, rarely, if ever, his wife, usually someone unattainable, for whom he would joust and perform acts of valor. Very often she'd tie her favor on his arm, before he went off to the joust. And the answer is it could be ennobling, but it could also, as you've rightly figured out, lead to adulterous issues. The idea was to love from afar purely. How many people lived up to that ideal and how many people failed to, that's, like anything else with human beings, it's difficult to gauge how many live up to the ideal and how many don't. Um, as for it today, I don't really see that there would be much of a point, frankly, to courtly love today. Um, I mean, there might be, but I can't think of it. Um, except, you use Beatrice as an example. Well, it is true that for some men, I mean, remember she was dead early on, but for some men, they do have a feminine ideal who, for whatever reason, is unattainable, and often enough, it's because of death. Um, the love of woman can be extremely ennobling. It can also ruin you. I mean, you wouldn't know not being a married man yourself, but oh, that's right, I forgot.
Uh,
Never mind.
so so some of these women were married, and but then they had
Oh
like
yeah,
this knight that was doing this courtly love thing.
uh-huh, yep.
That doesn't seem morally licit to me.
Well, you got to bear in mind that they weren't supposed to be sleeping with them. Uh, Rather, it was seen. I mean, in a certain sense, and this is important to bear in mind, a great deal of our Marian devotion arose out of courtly love, and contrariwise, affected it. So, in other words, you were supposed to be thinking of it not in carnal terms, but in spiritual terms.
But that still creates a sort of competition with the husband, no? I mean, you've got this knight doing all these things, and
You would think.
like how could the husband just be chill with that, right? Like,
Well, they often were. I mean, part of it, it depended. Part of it, I mean, sometimes the husbands were knights themselves. It's hard to say. I mean, the thing is, it's a mentality that's so foreign to ours, so alien. Remember, we live in a very hypersexualized time. So when you read about the intense devotion of the knights to each other as comrades in arms, the modern reads gaiety into that immediately. Everything becomes sexual for us. Um, you know, when when you read about David and Jonathan, and it said David's love for Jonathan was surpassing, or vice versa, was surpassing the love of a woman. You better believe that our gay friends jump on that like nobody's business. It's It would be a better thing probably not to try to attempt it these days.
yeah, it seems like playing with fire at
Certainly
best.
now,
Yeah.
certainly now. As I say, in those days, it gave rise sometimes to abuses, but it also, as I say, did a great deal to stimulate Marian devotion. Even our phrase "Our Lady" comes from that. The idea of doing great deeds for her. Maybe you know the story of Our Lady's tumbler.
No.
Well, basically, uh, the fellow had he was a performer, he was a tumbler. Let me see if I can remember how it went. Well, I can't, but it's connected to another story about the knight that devoted himself to Our Lady as his lady in the sense of courtly love. And he either fell asleep or he was in prison or something. Anyhow, he wakes up or gets out of prison or something. And he's hailed as the victor in the tournament that he thought he had missed. And he said, "Well, how could that possibly be? I wasn't there." I said, "Well, you were. You were. Certainly someone was in your armor with your shield, your arms." And of course, it was figured that Our Lady herself had jousted for him while he was incapacitated.
Hmm. Okay. Oh,
But it's one of those things. Don't try this at home, kids.
yeah. Um. Question from Dwarf of Alexandria. Great to
Mm.
have you two back. To paraphrase Star Spangled Crown, the book baron and his court jester have come at last. Wow.
I
What is he paraphrasing from Star Spangled Crown?
Yeah, well, all right, that sounds good. I'm up for it. So,
Having humbled the talent a little, I thought Sir Charles would like to know that Archbishop Cordileone of San Francisco is offering a pontifical high mass for the feast of Blessed Emperor Karl on October 21st, presumably offering the mass in his honor, given he's not in the 1962 missal. His Imperial Majesty's cultus spreads like wildfire. And he goes on to say, if you don't have a packed show, I'd find it interesting, maybe even humorous, to hear what 3 things you each would do in your first month if you were made the Archbishop of Los Angeles. Cheers.
well, I didn't know about the Archbishop doing that. Just so you'll know, when a Tridentine Mass, a 62 Mass, is offered in Karl's honor, it's the Mass Os Justi, the Bones of the Just, which is a generic Mass for saints. Anyhow, well, do you want to go first or shall I?
Okay, I can go first.
All right.
So I'm a business guy, right? So it's like I have like business ideas. The um, the one would be to set up an accountability of kind of performance, right? Like you should be tracking like a church a parish's performance, and not just based on like money that they're bringing in, but also how many vocations are they actually generating, right? Like that's actually the bigger and more important number. Like because how much money you're generating, that's just short term, you know? That's short term thinking. And we're praying for vocations, but like what are we actually doing about it? Like you know, so I think that's one sign of a healthy parish is it generating vocations. Um I forgot what I had some other good ideas, but I can't remember. But I mean, basically, they should be they should be tracking it. Parishes should be accountable, you know, because right now it seems like it doesn't matter, what priest is doing what. Everybody's just doing whatever they want to do, you know.
Mm.
And there should be incentives. Oh, I know it. I know the other idea that I had. I think there should be financial incentives put in place for parishes to incorporate the Latin Mass into their routine. I think that should be a reward there, um, because I mean, honestly, it's bringing in more money. I mean, to me, that's a growth opportunity, right? Like in purely materialistic business terms, like that's an opportunity there that's just not being explored out of bad will, to be
Yeah.
honest. So yeah, those are the 2 main things I would say.
Well, if I were Archbishop of LA, and I've got 3 things to choose from. Actually, I've got 4 because you didn't do one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I'll take your third. The first thing I would do um, would be to what's the word I want? To take the reredos out of the hallway in the cathedral and put it behind the altar at the cathedral.
What's that word? What did you say?
Reredos, the altar piece, the thing in the back of the altar.
I haven't been to the cathedral enough to know. I just
So
remember.
as you come in the entranceway, I mean it's a hideous building and it's hideous inside and out. But as you come in, there's this big Spanish reredos that was supposed to go behind the altar of the new cathedral that was never built in the 30s. So I'd move it from there and I would put it behind the current altar. And I would all masses would be offered there ad orientem.
Ooh.
Um, and there would be one Tridentine Mass a Sunday to start. The liturgy of the cathedral would be reformed upwards. Ideally, we'd want the cathedral to be a showcase of liturgy, like Brompton Oratory in London. We might have to do a lot of cosmetic changes to conceal how hideous the thing is on the inside. The exterior, there's not much to be done with. And as part of that, I would probably want to get my hands on St. Vibiana again and turn it into a basilica once I did that. We don't have any basilicas in the Archdiocese, so I get St. Vibiana's back. I put her body back and make the Feast of St. Vibiana a big deal again, the way it was under Cardinal MacIntyre and his predecessors. That's two things. We've got two left. The third is edumacation.
Ooh.
It stinks. So I would Loyola Marymount, for starters, at the apex of our educational chain, would have to really radically revise their curriculum if
I mean,
they
how do you
wanted to
do that?
retain
And the problem is, how do you do that, and how do you monitor it?
It's very simple. You say, if you want to retain the title of a Catholic university in my archdiocese, you've got to do as I tell you. If you don't, obviously you're independent, you can do as you like, but you can no longer call yourself a Catholic institution. Oh, and by the
That's not
way,
ultra vires.
no, not at all.
How could he say? How could the head of the diocese say such a thing?
It's very easy. He's responsible for what's called Catholic and what isn't. I mean, they do it all the time. And if you want to use the label Catholic and you want to be affiliated with the archdiocese, then you have to live up to it. And if you don't, that's okay. You can keep on. It's just you can't call yourself Catholic anymore. And you can't say you're connected to the Archdiocese of Los Angeles in any way, shape, or form. And if the Jesuits have a problem with that, I'll invite them to leave the Archdiocese, which I also can do.
Well, I knew that one because the Fraternity of St. Peter was not welcome in Los Angeles until
Well,
a
then the
couple of,
Jesuits would find out what the FSSP went through. Wouldn't
yeah,
that be fun?
yeah.
Get a little taste of their own medicine, I guess. Then I would create a new curriculum for the schools of the Archdiocese, based upon schools like we already have, like St. Therese Academy and like St. Monica's in Montrose, and schools that didn't want to abide by it. Well, let's just say there's several things that could be done. They could be closed, or the principal could be fired, or, well, there's fun stuff like that. The third thing, or the fourth thing, I should say, since you helped me so happily, thank you. There would indeed be there would be inducements to offer the Tridentine Mass, even as you've said, but these would be intimately connected to the priest's career.
The maybe there would be maybe have the what is it? Not the is it the offering? What's the
The
collection
offertory.
plate?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, the collection plate.
yeah. Maybe that would be for the pension fund. So
Well,
like
that
their
would be
pension
fun.
would be entirely determined from the collections of the Tridentine masses.
Well, that would probably take care of it, but right there. But no, I'm thinking of how Cardinal Mahoney used to do it. Basically, if you had a Latin Novus Ordo, your career was over. You weren't going to go anywhere. Well, I just reverse it. If you don't, then you're probably going to stay where you are forever, at least as long as I'm Archbishop. And I've got to tell you also, I would not be ashamed of recruiting foreigners to occupy priestly positions. Oh, as part of education, there's also the seminary. Uh, Need a lot of work on the seminary. And yes, they would be taught to say the traditional Mass, despite the non-existent motu proprio.
Do they even learn Latin in the seminary anymore?
Well, they're teaching it again, believe it or not, at the seminary in L.A.
Yeah.
And if anyone wanted to complain about it not living up to the motu proprio, I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, show me in the Latin where it says that. You know, the Latin of the motu proprio.
Oh.
Yeah, and until you can do that, I have to abide by St. John the 23rd's Apostolic Constitution, Veterum Sapientiae. So go suck on a turnip until you can come back with some real information. Bye-bye.
Okay. Gosh, Charles, you got me so excited. It's
Yeah, well, don't get. Yeah, it's like reading Star Spangled Crown. Don't get too excited. You'll wake up to reality soon enough.
I can dream.
Yeah, you can dream. A boy can dream, Kenny. That's one of my lines. Plus, I would say that I would order a freeze on the recruiting of further Eucharistic chicks, altar chicks, for the sake of vocations.
Nice. Yeah.
Now, mind you, when I say a freeze, that doesn't mean tossing out the ones we've got. It's just no more will be recruited. Because, you don't want to, a girl who's actually been doing it, you don't want to ruin her experience either.
Right. Right. Okay. Very good, Charles. All right. It's been a nice pre-show.
Yeah, it's been kind of even tempered, kind of, autumnal,
Yeah.
easygoing, restful, kind of kicking back, smoking the pipe under the autumn leaves, a little bit of chill in the air, the smell of the bonfires in the distance because they're burning excess plants and so on, from the fields.
Is that to keep the witches away?
We don't
What?
say the W word.
But what am I thinking of? Right? Like
We're
there's.
just you're thinking of Walpurgisnacht,
Yeah.
and that's
When is
back in
that?
the spring. That's in
Oh.
the spring. But
Oh.
in any case, we don't talk, especially in October. We we don't mention by name different things.
Oh. Okay.
Like you don't the folk that I'm not talking about the people you just mentioned. I'm talking about the other ones. We call them at this time of year. We call them the good neighbors.
The good neighbors.
Yeah, we call them the good neighbors. We don't, you know, use the F word or the E word or we don't call them that at this time of year. They're the
Okay.
good folk. And we don't use the W word on them either. They're the good folk, the good neighbors.
We don't use the F word, the E word, or the W word.
No.
Okay. Well, good enough.
They just and you might leave this time of year. You might leave little things out for them, just to keep them happy. It doesn't hurt because as the nights grow longer, their power grows stronger, and well, you want to be on the safe side. I'm not saying anything's likely to happen, and they surely they're always good intention, of course. They would never do anything bad, but you really you don't this you yeah.
Is there a fairy who's holding you hostage?
Don't use that word. No, the good neighbors aren't around here right now. This is the middle of the old continent, all right? The depths of Austria. You understand? There aren't any of them around here right now, okay? There aren't any. And if there were, they'd all be really good intentioned. because they're very nice. That's why we call them the good neighbors, especially at this time of year. They're wonderful.
Okay, that's great, Charles. Thank you for telling us all about how wonderful the good neighbors are.
It's important that you understand that they really are wonderful, and they would never hurt anyone because they're so very nice.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the pre-show, everyone. Stay tuned for the full episode. Hopefully, Charles will be okay, and see you then.
And ooh, uh, well, yeah, we'll see you at the real show. Uh, 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 plant rowan trees and ash trees and oak trees anywhere you can. Yes, that's a good thing to do at this time of year. Was that right? Yeah. Okay. Ah, good. Thank you.
Okay.
The
We
good
settled?
neighbors really are good. Yeah, everything's fine now. It's just sort of a, you might kind of the Central European equivalent of a word from our sponsors, as you might say. Everything's fine. It's all good now.
Stay tuned for the full episode coming right at you.
Just a few minutes. Ciao, ciao.